kind of building on what Adam is saying, Ron, I'm actually going to throw this question to you. If the attack, the normal behavior can change so dramatically, and you were talking earlier about how attacker activity and admin activity, it's hard to tell a difference. So how would you recommend investigating identity-based attacks? Like if attackers are hiding their identities using stolen credentials and assumed roles, like how are you supposed to investigate and detect an attack?
First, I will say there isn't an easy answer, right? If there was, it wouldn't be interesting. The way that I look at it in the end, since it's complex and since there are multiple answers, our approach, my approach, I should say is a defense in depth. So let's assume you have one chance to catch an unusual activity, and it's only within the sign-in process. Is it the best way or the best timing to catch a malicious activity, malicious session, malicious actor within the sign-in? Well, of course, because it's before anything else happened, right? But there is a price. The price is that you have very little information at this point in time. So as an example, if Adam is now logging in from Frankfurt, from a VPN, it has different aspects versus a machine or an API key is now logging in from Frankfurt or VPN, right? So a human has different tolerance versus a machine, right? So that's one aspect. Two, okay, Frankfurt, what if it was another country in Africa or in Asia where no one from the organization had ever connected to? In that case, is it worth it for the SOC to review it? Maybe it's valid. Maybe it's traveling now to Africa or to Asia, but probably less common, right? So in the end, so potentially would alert, potentially would not. What does it mean? It means that you also need to track activity beyond the sign-in. And that's where defense in depth comes in. And in the end, it's two things, right? It's the patterns of the connection. Does the connection make sense in terms of the properties of the session, the origin in terms of IPs and geolocation, etc. The browser, the user agent, like all the details that you can gather. In the end, the more the merrier, right? And second, as you continue to follow through, what are they doing? Is there a sign of malicious activity or abnormality beyond that? And that becomes harder, right? Because it's a lot of scale. It's more complex. You need to know more applications and more services, and that's a challenge. So I would say have more than one line of defense, because potentially if you try to have less than hundreds of alerts a day, you will not catch everything on the first pass. Try to have as many signals as possible, and try to be as granular as you can, and expect different actors, machine, vendor, service, API, human, to have different levels of sensitivity based on how stable their baseline is.
Yeah, that's a good point. One of the things, so I was thinking about this a bit with the how do you know it's normal, that kind of thing. And I think, kind of what you're going into as well is, really it's anomalies are what are really the most important part, because the anomalies are where you start to be able to differentiate what's admin activity versus bad actor activity. And this is also where, like even like I was saying before, even like the less sophisticated attackers are still engaging in campaigns now, whereas previously they were mostly doing smash and grab. So now the kill chain, think about it more elongated, is not just the standard kill chain related to a certain instance, but also now the broader campaign. So let's say, for example, I'm able to somehow leverage admin, like whether it's me as an insider who's now trying to do something more complicated and defraud the company. Like, let's say I'm an administrator and I change the DLP rules today. Well, if that's part of my job normally, that's okay. But if I'm doing it today as part of a broader campaign where next week I'm going to start exfilling data that I want to steal from the company, then that's a different story. And the reality is that I I don't wake up and decide, oh yeah, today I'm going to be a bad guy internally. It's more of a, I have planned this out and I'm going to do this over several sessions. I'm going to do these things. And the way I'm going to do them is different than the way I do them normally. Because yeah, I typically will have like ticketing work or something else, but I'm not going to like intentionally ticket that I'm changing the DLP rules so I can exfil stuff next week. So that's like where the anomalies across, you know, the journey comes up.
Yeah, I think these great.
Go ahead,
Ron.
Sorry.
No. Yeah, I mean, a great anomaly to look for is the first time X does Y, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time this URL has ever been seen in our network, right? This is the first time this user has ever called this API. It's always it can lead to an interesting detection where you might just be finding that a team got assigned a new job, right? Some people got laid off, and now this team is responsible for cloud provisioning where they used to only provision humans. And then you've got to update your model of what does real look like.